Okay, hello everyone. The rescheduled time is coming. So I'd like to start today's lecture. This lecture is a title. Uh, sorry. Uh, hmm, I I make the share my screen. Okay. Oh, あら、あら、あ、あ、so today, I'd like to talk about the coordinating relevant stakeholders as a series of lectures on disaster waste management and the support of the Ministry of the Environment, Government of Japan, and the Japan Society of the Material Cycles and Waste Management. Today's speaker is Mr Suzuki from Fukuoka University, Japan. I'd like to talk about this topic with the special and the support of the student in the Kyoto University, Japan. Okay, thank you very much in advance for your attention. So let's start today's lecture. At first, today's lecture's aim and scope is shown in this slide. Number one is to understand why the organization is necessary. Number two, to understand the functions and tasks necessary for disaster waste management. DWM means disaster waste management. Please memorize this word. Okay, this is a keyword for today's lecture. And number three, to understand the importance of the incorporation of the ordinary waste management in disaster waste management. One of the characteristics in the Japanese disaster waste management is this incorporation of the ordinary waste management in disaster waste management. This is one of the basic concepts of the our way of thinking for the disaster waste management. Okay. And next, the introduction of myself. My name is Shinya Suzuki. Suzuki is a family name, and Shinya is my first name. And this is maybe, as you know, this is kanji, and this is hiragana in Japanese, and this is katakana. That's all for my name in Japanese expression. Please memorize it, very, very important. Okay, I belong to the faculty of engineering. My department is civil engineering. And my email address is here, so that please contact me by using the email. Okay. And today's contents is shown in this slide. Number one, the introduction. I show you some pictures of the recent major natural disasters in Japan. And number two, why we need to arrange organization for the disaster waste management. Organization is essential in case of the disaster waste management. Number three, organizational arrangement for the disaster waste management. And I also show you some examples of the organization of the foreign countries. And finally, conclusions. So the number one topic, as an introduction, I'd like to talk about the recent major natural disasters in Japan. And this table is the typical examples recent major natural disasters in Japan. Of course, as you know, we have many natural disasters in recently. This is not the latest disaster. Almost every year we have heavy rain and heavy earthquakes all around the Japanese land. But of course, this is a very huge earthquake has occurred since 2011. Great East Japan earthquake. About 31 megaton of disaster waste was generated after this disaster. Very huge amount of the disaster waste was generated. And also in 2016, Kumamoto earthquake has also occurred. Kumamoto is close to Fukuoka, my living area. So I visited the affected area in Kumamoto many times. So today's lecture, today's lecture, I show you some pictures in the Kumamoto earthquake. And also, in case of northern Kyushu heavy rain in 2017, this disaster has happened in the Fukuoka prefecture, my living area. So I also visited the affected area, the Asakura, Toho village, and so on. So that I show you some examples of the natural disasters in Japan. And this slide shows some examples of the Great East Japan earthquake. Of course, as you know, terrible tsunami disaster has occurred in case this earthquake, like this picture. So that many destroyed buildings have generated after this huge natural disaster. For destroyed buildings is almost 118,000. Very many buildings was destroyed. And also this earthquake has a very intense destruction. Some are messed up car, and the very high intense power by tsunami. So the very large scale ship launched from the seaside to the land side. So the very huge power of the tsunami, we have a very shocked to know the fact of the how strong the natural disaster has affected our human life. And this is also the pictures of the Kumamoto earthquake in 2016. Quite huge shape with a magnitude 6.5 and 7.3 has occurred. So the Kumamoto earthquake also have affected our life with many damaged houses. So as a result, there was many mixtures of wood and concrete. So that it's very difficult to separate such kind of waste. This is a problem. And also, in case of the earthquake, the very high possibility of the occursion of the large-scale landslide. It's one of the case of the Kumamoto earthquake with the very serious transportation network division. And also it's a high possibility to our human was possibility of the victim of this kind of landslide. And also, this is a picture of the railway track bent by the infection, by the influence of the earthquake. Okay, and also, this is a picture of the northern Kyushu heavy rain in 2017. This disaster has a very strong effect, like tsunami from the mountain. So that there were much driftwood and soil in the affected area, like this picture. There was a much mixture of waste, wood, and soil. And also, this is a picture of the riverside, very, very serious. So it was for us to necessary to remove them immediately. It's also very important because it's essential to prevent the secondary disasters after the heavy rain. So the very smooth removal is necessary. And also, it's essential to remove them because of the from the hygienic point of view. So the cleaning activity of the riverside is very important. And also, this is a picture of the heavy drift deposition after the northern Kyushu heavy rain. So that there are many, many driftwood generations after this kind of disaster. Okay, this is an example of the recent natural disasters in Japan. Based on these disasters, I'd like to the reason why we need to arrange the organization. Okay, this is a very simple and basic, but a very important figure of the basic flow of the disaster waste. Basic flow of the disaster waste is composed from fundamentally four functions. Number one, we must to make a planning and management part. And the next step is the cleaning and the collection in the affected area near the residence housing and also some buildings from the commercial in the commercial area. And the next step is the storage and the separation of the disaster waste. So this is some conceptual figure of the temporary storage site. And this is the final step. This is treatment, recycle, and final disposal. So after transporting from the TSS, temporary storage site, to the treatment area. After the pre-treatment, we usually reuse and recycle the disaster waste or intermediate treatment if necessary or if effective, which means incineration in case of Japan. And also this is the final step of the final disposal or landfill. Okay, this is the basic flow of the disaster waste. And the first step, cleaning activity, I will show you some example of the first stage. This is a picture of Asakura Fukuoka, 2017, after the northern Kyushu heavy rain disaster. A large amount of driftwood rushed into the house, like this picture. And also, he was our laboratory student at the time. And this is driftwood went into the barn next to the housing, like this. So the residential people must get out the driftwood and spoils and the household goods on the first floor because they were wiped out because of the these damages. And also the barn still untouched at the time. So the cleanup activity almost not by using the machinery, by using the only manpower, manual power. This picture is tatami. This is Japanese historical and traditional furniture on the ground, on the floor, inside the housing is of the Japanese style. Tatami was made from the biodegradable product. So it's essential for us to remove from the damaged housing to the outside because tatami must degrade very immediately. So from the sanitary point of view, tatami cleaning is very essential, but it was too heavy. So the one tatami is necessary. 6 people's handling necessary from our experience, including me. I also complained that tatami was at that time very heavy. And also we must have the cleaning activity along the road next to the housing. We worked very hard until the vehicle can enter. Of course, just after the disaster, the vehicle cannot enter along the roadside. So the very smooth removal of the soils necessary. But not only resident, but also volunteer staff have engaged in such a kind of activity. Very heavy and very stressful, very hard work. But after that, cleanup is almost complete. This is a comparison between the before and after the cleanup activity. This is a picture of the before the cleanup. A large amount of driftwood and soils were deposited at the time. But a few days after, this is a picture of the after cleanup. We all, sorry, they all were removed considerably, even for a few days, only by hand, not using the heavy machinery, only by hand. So please believe the human resources and human power is very great possibility for the improvement of the restoration of the natural disaster, I believe. And also, this is another kind of natural disaster case in Japan. This is an example of the early recovery stage in Omachi Saga 2019. In this heavy rain disaster, some oil was spilled from the factory after the heavy rain, in that case, many TV news are shown in this kind of scenery in the Japanese TV program at that time. So that we had to cut the contaminated grass by the polluted oil near the waterway, like this picture. And also, the cleanup activity near the waterway is essential in this case. Very rare case, not the usual case, very rare case. But in this case, spilled oil was removed in the waterways all manually. The number of the staff for this kind of cleanup activity is as follows. Self-defense forces staff, 300 people, and factory staff, and also 300 people, and also volunteer staff, to 500 to 600 people per day. So the very large number of the cleaning staff was necessary in case of this pollution from the oil in the factory. There is a not usual case, but rare case, but it is a little bit possibility to do such kind of cleanup activity at the initial stage of the restoration of the disaster waste. And also, this is next step is the storage and separation. This is a conceptual figure of the temporary storage site from the Japanese guidelines for the disaster waste management. Please look at this picture carefully. You can find many people in the temporary storage site. This conceptual figure shows the example of the temporary storage site with a surface area about 1 hectare. But 1 hectare temporary storage site is necessary about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 staff is necessary in case of this kind of the temporary storage site from the ideal point of view. Of course, from the practical point of view, not every temporary storage site in Japan has secured such kind of operation. But from the ideal point of view, many staff are necessary for the suitable operation of the temporary storage site. And also, there are many heavy machineries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also, there are many equipment for the operation of the temporary storage site. Okay, and also I can show you some example of the temporary storage site in Japan. This picture is a reception installed at the entrance of the temporary storage site, which means the operation staff is necessary, at least at the entrance of the temporary storage site. And also, this picture is difficult to understand, sorry, but this is a picture of the example of the coordination and cooperation of the surrounding municipality in case of Japan. This picture shows the collection support of the surrounding local government, which has different colors. A different color means the different municipalities. So the many municipalities, not Kumamoto City, have a strong cooperation with the disaster waste collection in case of the very big natural disasters. And this is some example of the temporary storage site. But this is not the good operational condition. We usually install the sorting guides. It's very difficult to recognize. It's very small, and also rope dividers for the suitable separation of the disaster waste, and also blue sheet if necessary in case of the operation of the temporary storage site. Okay, this is an example of the real situation of the temporary storage site. And also there are another category of the temporary storage site after the heavy rain disaster. This is a real example of the northern Kyushu Island heavy rain. This is the temporary storage site of the driftwood. Most of them were relatively clean, but there was large volume of sand with the driftwood in case of this kind of disaster. And also, there are very huge amount of the soil generated after the heavy rain disaster. So the Asakura city has introduced the very huge temporary storage site for the deposition of the soil, like this picture. Not only soil, but also rubber was brought in the temporary storage site in case of this disaster. Okay, that's all for the introduction of the real example of the Japanese disaster case. And from now, I'd like to talk about the organizational arrangement for disaster waste management. This slide shows the special arrangement for the disaster waste management. Disaster waste management consists of various tasks which are different from the waste management in the normal time. Okay, those are different from the waste management in normal time. So many stakeholders are involved, including those not involved in the normal waste management operations. So the special arrangement, special organization is necessary in case of the natural disaster. And the organizational arrangement for the disaster waste management should be designed before disaster, which means the organizational arrangement should be designed in the normal time, in order to tackle with disaster waste management efficiently or effectively and cooperate with stakeholders smoothly. Okay? And also roles, responsibilities, and coordination frameworks should be pre-identified and communicated effectively. And this slide shows a very important figure in this presentation, in this lecture. This figure shows the function and task for the disaster waste management. This means the operations functions in case of the disaster waste management. Along with the basic flow, collection, separation, transportation, temporary storage, intermediate treatment, and final disposal are necessary for the functional treatment of the disaster waste. And also, there are other supporting functions in case of this disaster waste management, different from the ordinary waste management. Number one, command. Command is composed from the target setting, public relations, external affairs, internal affairs, and next is logistics. Logistics means such kind of human resources, equipment, facilities, and systems. And finance or administration are very important from the practical point of view. Contract process, payment, financial source. But I don't know the detail, this kind of information. So please don't make the question about the finance. And this is the final supporting function, planning. This means plan marking, information gathering, information sharing, information analysis, and information support. And the first supporting function, command. Someone or a management team needs to set targets, for example, time limit for the disaster waste management, and decide the overall policy for the disaster waste management to effectively manage DWM tasks. And public relations or the communication of information on what, where, when, and how people should discard disaster waste if necessary to minimize the post-disaster confusion for the residential people. It's very important task. And also the coordination with internal and external stakeholders should be conducted. And this is the second supporting function, logistics. Disaster waste management requires abundant resources, such as human resources, like this picture, heavy machinery, trucks, vehicles, like this picture, facilities and open space. And this is one of the very important items for the smooth recovery of the disaster chainsaw. And this is third supporting functions, finance, administration, contracts with private waste management companies and suppliers need to take place even during the emergency circumstances to ensure the appropriate funding. And revenues need to be secured, typically in the form of grants, because local governments are the most likely to face financial difficulties during disaster. And also planning to make the better planning. Information is very effective and very important on the disaster situation. For example, the estimation of the disaster waste management. Mr. Kushiyama had a very good lecture yesterday for the estimation of the disaster waste management, recovery of loss, sanitary conditions, resident complaints, work, something like that. This information should be integrated as an implementation plan to be communicated with stakeholders and revised as a disaster waste management proceeds. Okay, this is a next step introduction of the some real example of the foreign countries. This is one of the example of the Solomon Island. This is a conceptual figure of the organization. Honiara City Council has damaged the maybe a heavy rain disaster だったかな。Honiara City Council organized under the support of the national government, Ministry of Health and Medical Services, and also the Ministry of the Environment, Climate Change, Disaster Management and Meteorology. And also, Honiara City Council making the organizations Environmental Health Division and Works Division. And the very good collaboration with the foreign countries. Portobello Municipality Council in Vanuatu has a strong relationship between them. So the Environmental Health Division has conducted some kind of activity of in the community, such as conduct awareness raising and education program for 3 years, and so on. And this kind of activity of the restoration of the disposal site to recover the disposal site, to enhance vehicles to access disposable areas properly, and so on. And this is a second example of the foreign countries. This is a typical case of the relating the national and local levels in Indonesia. Disaster waste and debris management are stipulated in the Presidential Regulation number 8, 2008, led by National Board for the Disaster Management. This is a conceptual figure of this kind of organization. National Board for the Disaster Management has launched for the better disaster waste management. This is a national level organization. And also this is a local level organization. For example, National Armed Forces, Ministry of the Public Works and Housing, and also the Public Works local office in the local level. Ministry of the Home Affairs and Province, City, Regency Governor's Mayor's Office, Ministry of the Environment and Forestry, and also the Province, City, Regions, but Environment, governmental regulation, including disaster waste management, is to be formulated under this organization. So the final step is the incorporation of the ordinary waste management in disaster waste management. It's very difficult to read this slide. This is a conceptual ordinary waste management cycle. Number 1, waste discharge. Number 2, clear and waste collection. Number 3, intermediate treatment, including the incineration, some recycling activity. Number 4, final disposal. And number 5, awareness and capacity development. This is a typical or conceptual case of the ordinary waste management. But in case of the disaster waste management, special arrangement for the organization is essential. For the DWM planning, strengthen the waste management organization, improvement of waste management planning based on the data analysis. And this step, capacity development of the community or development of networks are necessary. And for the disaster waste collection, continuous operation after just after the natural disaster, and also increase the capacity, proper contract with collectors, and also treatment or disposal process, increase the capacity, proper contracts with contractors or contracts with private sectors. And also, this is very important, securing communication channels, handling through self-help public assistance. So for the better disaster waste management, it's essential for the governmental officials to understand accurately the overall image of disaster waste management. Many peoples, many stakeholders have cooperation with the governmental officials, but governmental officials should understand the whole image, total image, overall image of the disaster waste management is very important. And also, please refer to the existing guidelines. For example, UN OCHA guideline disaster waste management key stakeholders is shown in section 3, page number 15. I show you this link. So the Yoshimura-san, Mr. Yoshimura, please upload this URL for the chat for the participant. Oh, oh, sorry. Okay, this is can you look at this files? Okay, this is UN OCHA guidelines in page number. This is a description of the stakeholder management. So the very effective to make use of the existing guidelines. And also, of course, our guideline is very effective. So the conclusions, disaster waste management consists of the various tasks. Those are different from the waste management in the normal time. It's important to incorporate the ordinary waste management in the disaster waste management. Organizational arrangement for DWM should be designed before disaster. For operations function, disaster waste need to be collected, separated, transported, stored, and disposed. And for other supporting function, it's necessary to put forward the DWM process, including command, logistics, finance, administration, and planning. Okay, today's lecture is finished. Thank you very much for your attention. And you can access the related information on today's lecture under the web page of our academic society. Yoshimura-san, please upload this URL for the chat. So thank you very much for your attention. Okay, that's all for my explanation. From now, the question and discussion time.
We have two questions from Dr. Alok Taundial. So the first question, I think he's asking regarding building and building structures. So Dr. Alok asks, can we not use shear wall or a diaphragm to redistribute the lateral forces?
Sorry.
So that's the first question.
Please say it again.
Yes. So I think this is regarding building structures in Japanese buildings, if I'm not mistaken. And he's asking, can we not use shear walls or diaphragm structures in order to redistribute the lateral forces?
You meanどういうことか。
in the chart.
Japanese. Very sorry. I can't understand, but maybe about Japanese building structure. So I think Japanese building structure became a very strong because we have already experienced a huge natural disasters. For example, Great Hanshin Awaji disasters. So the structure was very, very strong after the huge earthquake. But in case of the tsunami disaster, it's very difficult to prevent from the damage. So the different kind of countermeasures who are necessary for the another kind of natural disasters. And also heavy rain disaster is also very, very serious.
We have another question from Dr. Alok, but he's joined the panelists, so maybe he could ask it in his own words. Cho-san has also posted his second question in the chat. So I think it says, since it involves anthropogenic activities, emissions of greenhouse gases, how could we minimize disaster waste?
From the viewpoint of the reduction of the greenhouse gases, I think the management of the treatment of the wooden materials because of the relatively large amount of the large fraction, also in case of disaster waste, including the some drift wood. In today's lecture, after the heavy rain, of course, we made a very big effort to the utilization of the wooden materials after the heavy rain, but the little bit difficult because the contamination has usually occurred, including some contamination of soils and some other materials. For example, the metal contamination or plastic contamination. So some private companies have effort to accept such kind of waste. For example, a cement production company or some power plant company by using a wood material. But from the practical point of view, it's a bit difficult. But very important to make the effort to for the more better utilization of such kind of materials, I think.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Alok. I think we have our next question from Dr. Glenn Fernandez. So I think he asks, should there be a different command and staffing for different hazards, for example, earthquake or typhoons, as the expected volume of disaster waste will be significantly different?
In my opinion, there is a possibility of the amount of disaster waste or the some waste composition of disaster waste management. in case of, for example, earthquakes and heavy rain disaster. In case of the heavy rain disaster, there is a very high possibility of the generation of the huge amount of soils and wood. So in case of Japan, another kind of sectors have a responsibility, such kind of treatment for the drift woods and soils. This is not the disaster waste, but the, some byproducts after the disaster waste. This is a basic concept of the Japanese government. But from the real case, there are a huge amount of driftwood and soils. Of course, some people must have a responsibility for the treatment of such kind of materials. So that I think the different operational staff and operational equipment are necessary according to the kind of the natural disasters, I think.
Thank you very much. We have one more question from Dr. Abiodun Afolabi. Is there any mechanism to upcycle disaster waste material to derive values and support environmental sustainability? If no, what do you think we can do to manage this category of waste?
The possibility of upcycling. My answer is only for the case of the Japan. I think I think it's important for us to consider the basic planning for the treatment of soils, because soil itself has a very huge amount of volume generated after the natural disaster. And also, there is a very high possibility of mixing various kinds of materials, such as concrete, wood materials, and many fractions are contained from the soils. Soil itself has non-toxic, non-harmful byproducts, but a very amount of the mixtures in the disaster waste, so that it enables, so it causes us to the disaster waste treatment process. It made us very difficult. So the upcycling, some utilization will be necessary for the better management of the treatment of such kind of materials. I think soil management is very important to reduce the amount of disaster waste. And sorry, I don't know the my opinion for the upcycling, but I believe there is some possibility for the upcycling of the disaster waste treatment. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
We have about a minute, and if there are any other last-minute questions, just one more.
Thank you so much. So, any other question or comment? Okay. So the time is almost finished. So thank you very much for your attention for today's lecture. This lecture is coordinating the relevant stakeholders. Please memorize in the contents of these lectures. So thank you very much again, and bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Today's lecture is finished. And thank you very much, the student in Kyoto University. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.